oceans cover 70% of our planet. For millennia, they have provided billions of people with an endless supply of fish. It seemed infinite. But for decades, we've been catching fewer and fewer fish. 85% of our fish stocks have been fished to the brink. Many have already collapsed.
It's just being fished out, way overfished.
Running out of the fish we rely on is not a prediction for the future. It's already begun. And the impact is devastating.
6 generations down the line, passed down.
It didn't take the fish from the goddamn water.
But how close are we to a global catastrophe? Official numbers give us only part of the puzzle. Now, an international team of scientists is attempting to piece together the full picture by counting the true quantity of fish we catch each year, following a trail of clues and evidence from people on the ground. It's the biggest scientific fish story ever told. And with the future of millions at stake, can it help us save our seas and ourselves? The ocean's bounty once seemed endless. All that sea life, relentlessly reproducing, creating beauty and amazement. And millions of tons of food. Those in the fishing industry often touted the idea that what we took out of the water was but a drop in the ocean. 2% at most, quickly replaced. But 1996 was the year we caught the most fish, known as peak catch. Since then, global catches have been going down. Dr. Daniel Pauly, one of the world's top fisheries experts, believes it's part of a much bigger problem. He's on a 15-year mission to get a true picture of how much we extract from the world's oceans.
If we know that the catch of the world is declining rather than being stable, then you know that something is wrong.
Doubting official figures, Dr. Pauly has an unconventional way to prevent this approaching crisis. He's in search of the canaries in the coal mine, local fishermen, charter boat operators, and restaurant managers who are intimately connected to fish and who know exactly when they start disappearing.
It is supposed to make it possible to find out about the fisheries, how much is caught, who gets it, and where does it go.
Daniel has come to the Bahamas to work with scientist Nicholas Smith. On this island nation, and others like it, people depend on the sea. Nicholas finding clues that fishermen here may be catching far more fish than they record.
In the Bahamas, as in other countries, certain fisheries are never reported.
A fishery is as slippery an idea as a fish itself. It's basically a group of people who fish in the same area, targeting the same kind of fish and using the same methods. And that's true whether the fishery is large or small. Subsistence fishers take only what they need to feed themselves and their families, the way humans have been fishing for at least 40,000 years. Artisanal fishers catch enough to sell and trade locally. Recreational fishers, a relatively new phenomenon, fish for fun and bragging rights. And industrial fishing is large-scale fishing for business and export. This fishery provides almost all the fishing data we have. In the Bahamas, the reported catch is close to 340,000 metric tons. Nicola Smith knows that this number can't be right. So she looks for proof in other places.
So it's really funny because the Bahamas, we don't keep very good data on fish and fisheries landings, but we keep excellent data on what tourists are doing and how many tourists come to the Bahamas.
The tourist data shows that millions flock to the Bahamas each year. They come for the bright blue seas, white sands, and warm sun.
When people come to the island, people want to partake in the island experience. The part of the island experience is to both eat local fish and to catch local fish.
The islands draw 5.2 million visitors a year, 10 times the local population. But how can Nicola calculate the amount of fish that tourists actually eat?
I basically sat down with a phone book and called all the major hotels in the Bahamas. And I spoke to the purchasing managers at the hotels, and in some instances, the head chefs, because these are the people that actually stock the restaurants with fish.
From there, Nicola could estimate the total amount tourists ate. But when she compared her number with the reported fisheries number, something was drastically wrong. Somehow the tourists were eating more fish than fishermen caught.
I started to wonder if I'd miscalculated something, and maybe I made an error in my calculations, and so I had to check everything over multiple times to find out, no, this isn't the case.
She discovered that much of the fish going to hotels and restaurants was not included anywhere in official data. It seemed as if an entire fishery was missing from the figures. Local fishermen, like Archie McBride, held a piece of the puzzle. He's been fishing here since he was a boy.
I was 14. I left school, went full-time into commercial fishing, and basically been doing it commercially ever since then, 46 years. We made a very good living at it. We had quite a bit of money. Where I would be diving would be on mostly heads. It's like a big rock that sits on the bottom, and the fish kind of gather there for protection.
Archie is what's called an artisanal fisher. He catches his fish the old-fashioned way, one at a time, with a spear. His fish supply the local market.
So I'll dive ahead for anywhere from 5 minutes to maybe 15 or 20 minutes. And it's just repeated that from one head to the other.
Archie knows there's a problem that the official figures have hidden. He sees it every day.
The areas where I go now and dive, it's just being fished out. It's being way overfished.
Because the government doesn't require these fishermen to report their catch, all their fish entirely bypass the official data.
We probably have anywhere from 250 to 350 fishermen on this island alone that do basically the same thing as I do. And I'd say all through the Bahamas, there's got to be over 1,000. Even if each one of them is taking 100 pounds of fish a day, that's a tremendous amount of fish that's not being reported.
Compared to the hundreds of thousands of tons reported in national data, it doesn't seem like much. But Dr. Pauly knows how little things can add up.
It shouldn't happen that the fisheries exist, that everybody knows they exist, but that this catch is reported as zero. This is unacceptable in a sense, right?
And this wasn't the only fishery going uncounted in the Bahamas. Tourists don't just eat here, they also fish. Nicola wants to calculate the numbers caught this way, and that calls for detective work.
So every time a tourist leaves to the Bahamas, they fill out these little surveys, and I was able to estimate how many visitors to the Bahamas actually partook in recreational fishing during their stay.
Tourists reeling in fish for fun don't think they're part of a big fishery. But in the Bahamas, recreational fishing is big business. To get real numbers, Daniel and Nicola go fishing.
Okay, Nicola, let's get started. Let's see what we can catch. Hook.
What type of fish are we going to catch here?
We're going to be catching mostly, it's going to be like reef species of fish, which are going to be yellowtail snapper, mutton snapper.
Any groupers?
Possibility of grouper, barracuda.
Oh, so how much fish am I likely to catch? Like, do you typically catch 1 or 2 fish, or like a cooler full?
Around the reefs and the wrecks, we usually tend to catch quite a bit of fish. Anywhere from 12 to 24, sometimes even more than that.
In one trip?
In one trip, yes.
Using numbers like these, Nicola can estimate what a typical fisherman catches on a recreational boat. That, and the number of tourists who go fishing, reveal a stunning quantity. Nicola Smith meticulously tracks down the missing fisheries data from all across the Bahamas.
So the calculations. The calculations took weeks, maybe even months.
Ton after ton, the amount of fish in each unreported fishery begin to add up, dwarfing the reported data.
My reconstructed estimates were 2.6 times what is the official statistics for the Bahamas. And what's even more frightening about that number, the fact that it's astronomical is frightening in itself, but what was really scary was that more than half of my reconstructed catch was attributable to the recreational fishery.
Not only was the recreational fishery the largest fishery in the country, but shockingly, no one had ever counted any of these fish before. Since record-keeping began, about 500,000 metric tons of fish have been caught, but never counted. Nicola's discoveries are the first warning signs that our global catch data could be dangerously off target.
In countries where recreational fisheries are important, such as the Bahamas, not reporting this catch is actually distorting the catch statistics to a tremendous extent.
The scale of unreported fishing in the little archipelago of the Bahamas hints at a massive global problem. A problem unsolved until Daniel brought his ingenious methods to fisheries catch data. In the 1970s, as a young scientist working in Indonesia, he made waves by coming up with an equation to help tropical developing nations assess their fisheries. He researched where other scientists failed to look and invented a new way of looking at fisheries science.
And that was really an epiphany. So we have to invent other concepts to deal with this.
Finding answers to huge questions by inventing new techniques would become his hallmark. In the 90s, as global fish stocks were going down, he rejected the accepted wisdom that getting complete data on fish catches was impossible.
People always think there are no data. Maybe that's true in their head, but it is not true objectively. It turns out that there are lots of data.
Daniel and his team covered the globe, painstakingly digging up data from buried sources.
As long as you're willing to go outside of the regular, traditional data sources, I'm actually utterly surprised about how much information is out there.
They found gold mines of information in unexpected places. Colonial reports from the past contain descriptions of the kinds and amounts of fish once caught. Satellite images showed the number of fish fences catching fish along remote coastlines. Household surveys revealed the amount of fish people living on islands eat.
They can be used very well to estimate the subsistence fisheries.
Gender studies document women collecting seafood from reefs.
The food goes directly into the family cooking pot, and therefore it's a great contribution to the food security of people. It never gets covered in fishery statistics, never.
Daniel knows that safeguarding this food supply hinges on accurate data. Getting it wrong can lead to disaster. And there's no clearer place to see that than in Newfoundland, Canada. It's the tragic story of cod. In the 1600s, fishermen from Europe came here to catch cod. They wrote that there were so many they could hardly row boats through them. But over time, we got better at catching fish. We built bigger boats, more boats, equipped them with engines, fish finders, better navigation systems, and strong machinery for lifting nets. We took longer fishing trips, went further out to deeper water, and used massive onboard freezers to stay at sea for weeks. By the 1970s, huge trawlers were dragging up giant netfuls of cod. In the 1980s, catches were falling, but the government was reluctant to step in. The cod population was crashing. Eventually, the cod and the ecosystem collapsed under the pressure. In 1992, with an estimated 1% of the former cod population left, the Canadian government had no choice but to shut down the fishery.
The helmet, John Crosby!
6 generations down the line, passed down.
I didn't take the fish from the goddamn water.
But who took
This is going to affect everybody, from truck drivers to grocery stores to everything.
And you can imagine 40, 50,000 people lost a job overnight.
The closure of the cod fishery put thousands of people out of work and ended a way of life. The frightening truth was that cod, so plentiful they once choked the seas, were now virtually gone. Dr. Daniel Pauly thinks the fish collapse could have been avoided if officials had used complete catch data. Numbers they could have had if they'd listened to the local fishermen, whose whole culture revolved around the health of the fish. People like Carl Hedderson.
Hello, Carl. We're going fishing.
Sir, don't worry.
I started fishing, I guess, when I was a kid, chasing my father around. All of us kids used to want to be fishermen, I guess. That's all we ever knew. Something about it, once you get in that boat, you don't want to leave it.
Carl remembers what it was like before the cod crash.
In Newfoundland, fish was cod. If you said fish, well, that was cod. If you were a fisherman, you were fishing cod. But now, if you're fishing, you don't fish any cod.
But Daniel and Carl can go recreational cod fishing. It's a chance for Daniel to see if the cod have recovered at all since the fishery closed.
Okay, Danielle, you want to try for a cod?
Yes, sure. Let you show me.
Yeah, you just let it go to the bottom. We'll see who gets one first. Just move it slow. You got to keep a steady strain. If not, they'll let go. They'll fish are smaller here. Just move your line slow. There you go. Here's a big one. Look. There you go. It looks like a nice one. Lovely cod.
Oh, gosh.
Got one?
No, I'm feeling like a failure.
No? Don't pull it up until you get one.
Oh, la, la.
Got
Oops.
one?
Yep,
Okay, just pull it in.
25 years after the moratorium, the cod are slowly beginning to bounce back.
That's a nice sized fish.
But these fish are a pale reflection of their 200-pound ancestors. It's a bittersweet moment to catch cod this way. Like Daniel, Carl believes the cod collapse could have been avoided. What's more, he has evidence. Before the fishery closed, he and some scientists documented that the cod population was falling.
It never just collapsed overnight like they were saying, but we saw it coming for 7 or 8 years maybe, and nobody would listen.
Because Carl fished close to shore using a simple trap, he could see something that wasn't obvious from the reported data alone.
In the 80s, they were telling us there was lots of cod, but we were noticing getting scarcer and smaller.
Data from the cod traps would have given the government almost a decade's warning about the dwindling cod population. If only they'd looked at it. Instead, they relied on data from large trawlers that followed the fish around and always came back with a full net.
But with big trawlers and stuff, they chase the fish. So when the fish congregate into one little bunches, I mean, they can scoop it up.
The reported catch numbers from the trawlers created the illusion that there were still plenty of cod. But it's all there in Carl's old receipts, warning signs of the impending disaster.
This one would be cod. It was October 1990. On October the 1st, 1990, we caught 174 pounds.
As Daniel suspected, the receipts clearly show fewer and fewer cod.
I thought they were supposed to be looking at that at the time, but I don't think they did.
If they had looked at
They
this.
would have known that the catch rates were down over the years. Like,
Did you ever get feedback from the people to whom you provided it?
no, not really.
This would have backed the statement that you made.
Well, yes.
This is amazing. This is annoying. And the taxpayer...
The government didn't heed the warnings in the receipts, and they didn't foresee the damage that the fishery closure would cause.
I missed the fishery. I missed the fishing cod big time. Like, it seemed like everybody was closer or something, you know. Cod was the thing. If you met somebody, that's all you talked about. It was never about the money, you know, like it was just about being busy.
Between 1950 and 2010, the reported catch of Northeast Canada was over 90 million tons. But when Daniel and his team hunted down the unreported fisheries data, the scale of all the previous fishing began to emerge. The true fish catch from Northeast Canada was almost 200 million tons, about 100 million tons more than the official reported catch.
And their first reaction is, but it doesn't correspond to the official catch. But the official catch doesn't correspond to reality. This is obvious that it was not sustainable. Nothing can be sustainable that has a whole industrial might thrown at it.
Industrial fishing boats catch most of the fish caught in the world. But fisheries worldwide are falling. How much further can they drop before they crash? The tragedy of cod could be just the beginning. The world's fish catch grew until 1996, the year of peak catch, when numbers reached their maximum. In the 20 years since, fishing technology and boats have improved. We've actually been trying harder to catch more fish. Yet despite this increased effort, we have caught fewer tons of fish.
So if you have an increasing fishing effort and a decreasing catch, it means that the world fisheries resource are going to hell in a handbasket. The problem is on the boat. This form of fishing has nothing to do with stewardship. That is the problem nowadays.
And the problem is made even worse because some of these monster boats are deliberately hiding their catch. These are illegal fishing boats. Pirate fishers hide on the open seas, stealing huge quantities of fish, leaving a trail of human misery in their wake. And they certainly never report their catches. To investigate, Dr. Pauly has come to West Africa, known as the black hole of illegal fishing. And he's recruited Dr. Dia Belhabib to reconstruct the true catch of Senegal.
No one ever wants to go there and quantify illegal fishing because it's very difficult. And this is very dangerous. It's important to have numbers and to show the government how much of illegal fishing is actually going on
here. Here, as in Newfoundland, the local fishermen are the canaries in the coal mine. They return at dawn to offload their sardines. Packing them into trucks that will take them to the capital, Dakar, and beyond. And while most of the catch goes unreported, fishermen here can see they're catching fewer fish than in the past.
In the last 10 years, the biggest change has been the decrease in wild fish. There's less and less fish.
Mbe Sek, head of the local fishing committee, fears that these fish could be on the edge of collapse.
If it keeps going like this, it will be a catastrophe for Senegal.
The local people are drastically dependent upon this sector.
Dropping fish numbers ripple through the whole community.
It affects everybody, fathers, wives, and mothers, because the sea is our main home. Our lives depend on sardines.
People inland also depend on the sardines. Seynabou Dieng heads up a team of women who process the sardines for export. They smoke the fish, then break off the tails and fins and lay them out to dry. Buyers box up the sardines and truck them by the millions to the interior of Africa. There, people rely on them for vital protein. At every step of this chain, people feel the impact of plummeting fish stocks. Yet Seynabou sees no other way to live.
The day the sardines are consumed, they will go and leave us here with our problems.
Seynabou's problem is only part of the bigger puzzle. Dr. Bel Habib needs to piece together the full picture. That requires complete figures from each fishery in Senegal. She starts with the official reported catch, just over 11 million tons. Industrial fishing boats from Senegal catch, box, and freeze the fish while still at sea. On shore, workers offload the fish quickly to make sure they stay deep frozen. These fish make up part of the reported catch for Senegal. Freezers the size of warehouses keep the fish out of the sun. These fish don't enter the local markets. They are bound instead for Europe and beyond, where they command premium prices. While some companies profit, this business does little for the Senegalese economy, and it endangers the food supply for the country. The exported fish are too valuable for the Senegalese to keep and eat. But worse, Dia discovered that even these legal commercial fishing catches are not fully counted.
They would tell you that they collect data every single day in every single landing site, every single month of the year, which is clearly not true. Catches are underreported by 2 to 3 times. So you have the official data, and then you have twice as much. For example, 2010, you have twice as much fish caught.
Add to that the one fishery that nobody is counting at all: pirated fish, and disaster looms. But Dr. Bel Habib has figured out a way to calculate the toll of piracy. She starts with a government surveillance unit and information from the Navy. They keep records of how many illegal fishing boats are spotted in Senegalese waters. The surveillance data noted the size and type of the boats. And from that, Dia could work out how many tons of fish each boat caught. The result was disturbing. Almost 5 million tons of fish were caught illegally. Adding the illegal fishing numbers to the figures she calculated for other unreported fisheries and the official figures, she was able to reveal the total catch in Senegal: 45 million tons. The true quantity of fish caught in Senegal was an astonishing 4 times higher than the government's figures.
And when you think about the extent of it, it's way dangerous.
Using the reported data, the fishery here might seem sustainable. But the true figure destroys that illusion. Since so many people, local and foreign, rely on these fish, a collapse here would be a catastrophe felt around the world. In investigating our global catch, there's one final category, and it's a massive one. Fish that never make it to shore because they were never meant to be caught.
So you never catch only the fish that you intend to catch. You also catch other things. This is called a bycatch.
Bycatch seems to be unavoidable in commercial fishing. Trillions of fish are unintentionally caught every year in every ocean. They may be too small, out of season, or a species the fisherman doesn't have a license to catch. But whatever the reason, they suffer the same fate. Fishermen often throw them back overboard, dead or dying.
And discarding is a big problem because these millions and millions of tons that are being discarded every year.
On my computer monitor
So the team needs to calculate the quantity of bycatch for each country. Using the Guatemala shrimp fishery as an example, Dr. Zeller starts with the amount of fish that were reported.
What you see in blue is what is reported.
Well-known figures from other scientists reveal the amount of fish that were thrown away versus the amount brought to shore.
Look at the difference between the blue and all the rest.
For Guatemala, the difference is about 10-fold.
Which means for every single ton of shrimp, approximately 10 tons of non-shrimp are being caught. So that's the bycatch.
Not only do these fish not get counted, they don't live to breed and restock the population.
If you remove a huge amount of fish from the ecosystem and return them dead, the ecosystem cannot keep functioning.
If we throw away 10 pounds of fish for every pound of shrimp on our plates, the worry is we will simply run out of fish.
So we have an economic model in countries that have starving children to throw away fish and food, good food, and you scratch your head and ask, how is this possible?
Daniel and his team have scoured the world to calculate the true fish catch of each country.
It is an immense amount of work. It's been about 200 papers with a total of 400 authors and co-authors have contributed to this.
The results of the reconstructions show two sickening similarities. In each country, the amount of fish being caught is vastly undercounted. And in almost every case, fishermen caught more fish in the past than they do today. Our oceans are being emptied. 85% of the world's fisheries have reached their maximum limit or are crashing. Time is running out. Dr. Pauly's group has proved that the world must change how it manages fisheries. But amid all the dire numbers, there are signs of hope. He has come to Honduras to investigate a game-changing project. If it succeeds, it could offer real-time tracking of even the smallest catches. Dr. Stephen Box from the Smithsonian Marine Station and his colleagues at the Center of Marine Studies have formed an unusual partnership with fishing communities along the North Shore.
It's very interesting. Traditionally, fishers and fisheries managers have kind of butted heads.
But faced with declining catches, the fishermen here turned to Stephen's team, who were ready to listen.
What we did was come in and kind of say, how can we help you? We know that fisheries are important to you, but you know that your fisheries are declining. So really, we have to start to work together to solve that problem.
Stephen and his team thought technology may hold the solution. They built a custom-designed app that could gather fishing data quickly and easily.
So that we can increase the resolution of where they...
After months of development, they are ready to bring the app to the fishermen. They launched their system in one of the most remote fishing communities. The only way here is by train. If Stephen's system can work here, it can work anywhere in the world.
You do know that they are embracing, this is not going to be a nasty surprise.
No, we're really sure.
The new app is a two-part system. First, biologist Andreas Alegria issues new fishing license cards that the app can scan and read.
Right now, we are issuing the licenses for these fishermen, the QR code with it, which is linked to the fisheries management database.
Each fisherman gets their own card, coded with their information. The next step is to give the app to the fish buyers.
So we're going to go over to the fish buying place, and there's two ladies there, and now we're going to kind of retrain them on the app.
Yeah.
The buyers already keep meticulous fishing data.
Yes, these are the species. This one is size 26, size 28, 31.
It's how they do business.
And this one is size 33. The total weight is 59 pounds.
Okay. So what we can do is get rid of these 3 books.
Yep.
And just replace all of the writing.
The new app collects the same data digitally, a faster and cheaper way to gather information. From here, the data goes directly to the government, transforming how fishing data is collected in small rural communities. Stephen and Andrea stand by to guide the buyers through their first ever app-registered fish catch. The app will send fishing numbers through a cell phone network and give analyzed data back to the fishermen to help them monitor their own fishery.
And so all the same type of fish goes on the scale pan. So this is, they call the pest pluma, okay? On the app, there's a picture of that fish, okay? So she can press, it's that type of fish, and then they put the weight in, that is 3 pounds. And we can count the number of fish, that is 4. So there's 4 fish, 3 pounds, 4 fish.
It was beautiful to see technology used at this level.
The app keeps a running total of how much these fishermen, and the 6,000 or so others just like them, catch. Dr. Box and his team plan to roll out the app across Honduras and beyond. The app ensures that every time a fisher sells his catch, it's counted in the Honduran economy and added to the global tally. And the data also gives everyone a stake in local fisheries management.
We need to give fishers a voice. They need to be heard. And we need to connect what they do and how they do it and where they do it to decision makers.
Basically, there is a radical break between the science and the decision-making at the policy level. A radical break.
And it will take decisive action, grounded in real, complete data, to avoid a crash of fish populations around the world. After 15 years of painstakingly building the science from the ground up, Dr. Pauly and his team have completed the unthinkable, a full calculation of the quantity of fish the world catches. Between 1950 and 2010, the reported global catch was more than 3.5 billion metric tons of fish. But the true catch of the world is a staggering 5.5 billion metric tons. That's 50% higher than we thought. It means almost 2 billion metric tons of fish have been removed from the ocean without our knowing.
50% more. And that it declines very rapidly.
The numbers themselves are enormous. But more importantly, the research reveals that our global fish catches are precipitously falling, 3 times faster than we thought.
Our estimate of the decline is about 3 times what you would estimate from the reported catch. A catch that is declining cannot be seen as sustainable. Because if sustainability means you can do that a long time, obviously you cannot have a long time a declining catch.
We can still fish, and we need to fish. But we must fish smarter.
Of course we want to be fishing. That's what we do. We're fishermen.
We now have the information to better manage our fisheries.
It's telling us where should we put our priorities for management.
And we can track illegal fishing boats from space. Create policies that take all our fisheries into consideration. And include even the smallest of small-scale fisheries in our global plans.
It will change the way artisanal fisheries are managed.
The departments of fisheries in the Bahamas and Senegal are already taking notice of the new figures.
Fisheries that exist are not going to be ignored.
And the discovery that we caught more fish in the past than we thought we had means we can rebuild fish stocks to higher levels. The oceans aren't boundless. But now that we know how much fish we catch, we can make sure there will be enough left for the future. Dr. Pauly and his team have shown us that the way we fish is unsustainable. Now, the world must act to ensure that our oceans can keep providing the fish we need to survive.